Hey everyone, my name is Samantha Bullier. I'm a student here at the University in Fort Kent. Um, I chose psychotic disorder for my project. So the definition for psychotic disorder is defined by either delusions, false implausible beliefs, or hallucinations. Um, a broader definition of psychosis can include manifestations, thought disorders, behavioral disorganization. Family members, particularly parents, are often concerned that children who manifest delusions or hallucinations might have a form of schizophrenia. Fortunately, most of these forms of psychosis in children and adolescents are not a result of schizophrenia. So, the science behind psychosis or psychotic disorders are usually a chemical imbalance within the brain. They have been linked to increased levels of dopamine, and dopamine controls the memory, movement, and thoughts. Sleep, mood, and attention span has also been linked to levels of dopamine. They've also found that there are low amounts of glutamate. This regulates duration of cellular messages and controls memory and learning. So there are some characteristics and symptoms. Um, there are many different psychotic disorders, and most of them have similar characteristics or symptoms, and this is some of them. You may notice that students are socially withdrawn. They don't have good peer relationships, or if any at all. They can have delusions or false beliefs in reality. Um, some people tend to be disorganized and have abnormal, incongruent behavior and emotions. Some people experience hallucinations, um, and anxiety is a big player in a lot of these. Some people can display developmental delays or cognitive deficits. Um, a lot of these symptoms can create thinking and speech that can become disorganized. Some people have the inability to focus on things, and they have very selective attention. Um, some people develop personality changes in eating and sleeping patterns, extreme mood swings, and some people can be violent or have excessive anger. There are so many types of psychotic disorders, which many of you are doing a lot of these different ones. There are a wide variety of schizophrenia spectrum disorders. Um, as you can see on the screen, there's a list of them there. There are secondary psychotic disorders, which um, people can exhibit symptoms of psychotic disorders through these different diseases or brain injury, or epilepsy. There are also psychosis due to a general medical condition, which could be like a secondary psychotic disorder. There are people that exhibit brief psychotic episodes. There are major depressive disorders, substance induced psychosis, and bipolar disorder. And there are a lot more. A lot of them can't be diagnosed at a young age. So a lot of these are things that can be diagnosed to children. Um, yeah. So prevention and treatment. Most scientists and psychologists believe that psychotic disorders are not preventable. Identifying the symptoms and administering treatment can increase the chances of recovery significantly. Obviously, avoiding drugs and alcohol can be a proactive way to reduce your risk of developing psychotic disorder. Treatment is usually a combination of medication and psychotherapy. Each patient's needs are different and they are all treated differently. The drugs that use to treat symptoms are called antipsychotics, and environmental factors such as head injury, poor nutrition, exposures to toxins can increase the likelihood of developing a mental illness. So, in looking under the Muser services, I figured that psychotic disorder could be categorized as an emotional disturbance. An emotional disturbance means a condition which exhibits one or more of the following characteristics over a long period of time and to a marked degree that adversely affects a child's educational performance. Um, an inability to learn and cannot be explained by intellectual, sensory, or health factors. An inability to build or maintain satisfactory interpersonal relationships with peers and teachers, which we all know can be extremely hard for people suffering with a psychotic disorder. That's one of the major indicators. Inappropriate types of behaviors or feelings under normal circumstance, which is also one of the biggest challenges with people with a disorder, such as like schizophrenia or um, bipolar mood disorders. And then a general for pervasive mood or unhappiness or depression, which is also one of the biggest characteristics. There is a tendency to develop physical symptoms of fears associated with personal or school problems. This term includes schizophrenia, which falls under psychotic disorders. Some implications for the classroom. Be specific with accommodations that will best meet the student's needs. You can follow low interest activities with high interest activities so students get breaks from difficult or less interesting activities from time to time, which will help keep their interest peaked. Teach students to keep track of their assignments, grades, and targeted behaviors using reminders such as assignment sheets or daily schedules and to-do lists. Openly communicate with parents and staff, create an IEP, provide information regarding resources to parents and staff, create and work towards a tangible goal on an hourly, daily, or weekly basis. There's so many teaching strategies and modifications for all students' needs, and some of them are, I think, one of the most important ones is to stay positive within the classroom. Um, Students with disorders of any kind can often be stressful, and you may feel like you're not getting through to the student, but it's very important to stay positive. Stay connected with staff and parents, check in regularly, educate all students about mental illness. I think that's really important in today's day because there's so many different types. Communicate in a straightforward manner. Have discussions to make the youth feel safe and comfortable. Listen and watch for reactions during discussions. Um, some things can be triggering for certain students with psychotic disorders, so it's important to really understand what they're going through and tailor your day-to-day lessons to help them learn to their highest potential. Slow down or back up if anyone becomes confused or looks upset. Be aware of the students whose questions, comments, or nonverbal behavior may indicate they need to talk or further with you or someone else. Allow extra time for information processing. I think that's important for all students. Use oral and written instructions. Use visuals. Giving photocopies of notes can help multiple students. Use study guides. Color coding information and small group instruction are just some ways that you can modify and help students with not only psychotic disorder but many other learning needs. Accommodations for students with psychotic disorders. You can break down tasks into smaller steps, minimize distractions, have a plan for redirecting students, assist with planning and organization skills, which again is important for all students, provide support for social problems, implement stress and management techniques, and create a safe and private space for students that need it. So this is a case that I found on YouTube. It's a 17-year-old high school student named Andrew, and he started to show signs of paranoia and early psychosis. And here's a little interview with him that you can watch.
I think what people don't really understand, normal people who don't, experience that me personally, I had no idea what was going on. It's not like I became angry at something or that something had really happened to me that was emotionally devastating. It was just like I lost touch with reality. I had been a normal kid, happy-go-lucky. My friends would poke fun at me because I was always smiling and always making jokes, and I was the most upbeat. And then in a matter of days, like my mom said, everything became sort of. It felt like the reality that I had known was distant, and I couldn't communicate. I was at that point hearing voices. Yes, mainly in music. I don't know how to explain it, but the song lyrics would change, and they would say hateful things, racist things, homophobic things. They would tell me to harm people. They would talk about harming people. Um, and I really didn't know how to vocalize it because I think any rational person would be like, "You're making this up. This isn't true, Andrew." It's sort of like the boy who cried wolf. So I figured I wouldn't cry because no one was going to come for me.
So, did anybody ever come up with a diagnosis here?
At that point, it was determined that Andrew had psychosis, otherwise unspecified. And that was in June of 2008. And he was in the hospital for about 5 days. Then he came home and he was better after receiving some medication. And he was seen by a psychiatrist for several months. And then he went off his medication after about 6 months. And about 3 months later, without any other form of treatment, no more visits to the psychiatrist, no more talk therapy, he had his second psychotic break.
So, eventually, Andrew, did they tell you what you had, what you were suffering from?
Yeah, my family and I met with a psychiatrist at UCSF, and after one meeting, probably 30-minute meeting, he decided that I had schizophrenia, and was. I didn't feel very good about this diagnosis because undisclosed psychosis it sounded 10 times better than schizophrenia. When I thought of schizophrenia, I thought of teenagers, beating up people and, breaking laws and acting like hooligans in a way, out of control. And that certainly wasn't me. I was never physically aggressive, sometimes frustrated, but I never hurt anyone in my in my experiences with psychosis.
Or otherwise.
Yeah.
But you said that when you were hearing voices, especially in this song, they were
Yeah.
kind of urging you on to some sort of physical
Yeah.
something.
But my parents brought me up well, and I knew that this is something that's totally unacceptable in society to hurt anyone. And so I resisted these messages that I thought were being sent to me. Um, and I'm glad that I was able to persist and to avoid any physical altercation.
Okay, so that was just a little blurb from Andrew's case.
How are you feeling? Well, how long have you been here?
And here are some questions that I have posed to the class to talk about. What can we do as teachers if you notice a student who was once personable, fun, and outgoing become withdrawn and have a personality change? And as the teacher, how would you approach Andrew's family about the current situation? What resources would you use to further understand what he is going through? And here are my references, and I hope you enjoyed. Have a great day.
The psychiatrist decided that this was the situation.